Welcome back to The Lead. New outrage on Capitol Hill today after Obama administration officials briefed lawmakers about two other cash payments to Iran. Sources tell CNN that in addition to the previously reported $400 million in cash given in conjunction with U.S. hostages held in Iran being freed, including Washington Post journalist Jason Rezaian, two additional cash payments totaling $1.3 billion were made, as first reported by this morning's Wall Street Journal. Republicans such as Senator Marco Rubio argue, quote, by sending the signal that hostages are a legitimate means of securing concessions from our government, the Obama administration has put countless American lives at risk through this payment, as Rubio wrote in today's Tampa Bay Times. Obama administration officials note that the $1.7 billion belongs to Iran, having been awarded by the Hague Tribunal, stemming from the U.S. not delivering fighter jets that Iran had paid for before the 1979 Iranian Revolution.
Seems that somebody should have reminded Obama that Iran is the largest state sponsor of terror, and we owe them nothing. They have caused countless American deaths, many soldiers paying for terrorism all across the globe. And of course, how much does one funeral cost? How much is a family's broken heart? How much money does it take to help that situation? We owe them no money. Actually, they owe us if we would do the calculations. But it seems that Obama is addicted during his term to keep paying off Iran for different reasons, crates of cash, whatever it be. He has a connection to Iran. Valerie Jarrett is Iranian. And of course, and not only does Obama have a connection with Valerie Jarrett, Iranian, that was his chief of staff, but Huma, and of course the Hillary Clinton fame, Huma, her aide, that's married to Anthony Weiner, is Iranian. Why are all these Iranians having high-level jobs in Washington?
On CNN earlier today, Deputy Secretary of State Tony Blinken acknowledged that no one can guarantee that none of the cash payment will end up funding Iran-backed terrorist groups.
We can't say that not one single dollar will go there. What we can say, based on what we've seen so far, is that virtually all of it is going into the economy, not into the military.
Is it not true that that money would free up other monies? Yes, technically, pharisaical and legalistically, you can say, well, that those monies go directly to the economy, to feeding people. Yes, that may be true, but it frees up other monies that would have been used for their economy and feeding people. And they use that money for terrorism. They get more money. It's obvious because of the terrorism in Israel that Iran boosted their coffers for terrorism and this massive attack in Israel.
Critics say the transaction is tantamount to ransom, encouraging future hostage-taking, a charge the State Department denies. Rather, officials argue it was leverage to make sure the hostages were returned. The Treasury Department has said that the payments had to be made in cash, Swiss francs, euros, and other currencies, because sanctions have been so effective at isolating Iran from the world's financial systems. Republicans in Congress have introduced legislation to block the Obama administration from making any future payments until Iran returns the $1.7 billion to the U.S. and pays compensation to American victims of Iranian-backed terrorism.
My video got messed with, so I'm just going to do it old style. My original one I made got tampered with when I'm in production. Well, let me tell you, Jake Tapper, do I think that you sounded like this during the Obama administration? No. I think this is fake news. You did not call out the Obama administration, Jake Tapper, and say, oh, we shouldn't pay, dues to hostage takers. I'm pretty positive, Mr. Tapper, you didn't call out Obama. I'm pretty sure of it. But you guys own the internet and would indeed try to change history.
It's a precious prize for the Islamic Republic. State television has been showing pictures of a U.S. drone Iran says it forced down near the Afghan border. While Washington is saying little, the U.S. press is claiming the aircraft was part of a secret American surveillance mission targeting Iran's nuclear sites. The Iranian Foreign Ministry has reportedly summoned the Swiss ambassador representing U.S. interests in Iran to condemn what it says was a violation of airspace. A huge explosion at a military base near Tehran last month also raised suspicions that foreign intelligence services could be operating in Iran. 17 Revolutionary Guards were said to have died, including the head of the elite forces missile program. Iran said the blast was caused by an accident. It insists its nuclear program is peaceful, but a UN nuclear watchdog report last month fueled Western concerns that Iran is seeking to develop the capabilities needed to make atomic weapons.
Huma is Iranian, and she had classified information on her laptop. They put all the heat on the Jew. Go figure that the target is Israel. Jews. I don't know if it's Obama or Soros. They don't like Jews. They say, oh, Soros is a Jew, but he sold them out. They say that he sold them out during World War II. Now, that with Huma given classified information, and of course Hillary Clinton given on the bathroom floor our classified information out, it's understandable that our drone got hacked and stolen from us. It was pretty easy for them to do.
Meanwhile, Putin has turned to Iran and North Korea to buy attack drones and ammunition to terrorize Ukrainian cities and people.
Now, it's clear that a drone got stolen during the Obama administration, and it got hacked. It's clear, and it'll be on a later clip in this video. That Panetta thinks it was hacked. Well, how did it get hacked? Was it, of course, Connie Rice that gave, or Susan Rice that gave it up? Was it Huma, the aide of Clinton, that's from Iran? Was it Valerie Jarrett, that's from Iran? Who enabled Iran to hack an advanced stealth drone that was flown there purposely? For what reason, when Obama was enriching Iran with billions upon billions of dollars of American tax dollars?
European leaders are urging Iran to maintain its end of the 2015 nuclear deal after President Donald Trump took the U.S. out of the agreement. In a joint statement, UK Prime Minister Theresa May, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, and French President Emmanuel Macron said they were committed to the deal. They pledged to defend the economic benefits the agreement brought to Iran and urged the U.S. to ensure that the structures of the deal remain intact. The three leaders also called on Iran to show restraint and continue to meet its own obligations under the deal. That includes allowing for timely inspections of the country's nuclear program. That program, the three said, must remain peaceful and civilian. The E3 admitted there were areas of concern that needed attention. The nuclear deal expires in 2025, and the three said a long-term framework will have to be defined. They also mentioned Iran's ballistic missile program and destabilizing regional activities. All those factors were reasons Trump said he didn't support the deal. On the flip side, conservatives in the U.S. and Israel praised Trump for his decision to leave the deal. Republicans, including House Speaker Paul Ryan and Senator John Cornyn, applauded the move. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, one of the deal's harshest critics, called Trump's action a historic move.
Added that Obama took millions of dollars and went to Israel and tried to unseat Benjamin Netanyahu. He took millions and tried to pay to subvert the election, and he had very good results. That they had a split election. That Benjamin Netanyahu had to share power with another party man in Israel. I do think that there's a possibility that Benjamin Netanyahu is not for a two-state solution in Israel, but Obama is. He absolutely wants to make Palestine a nation and still Israeli land. Again, it's not about who do you like better. I probably don't even get along with Jews. I have Jew in me. The whole idea is it's this theoretical, it's on principle. Who owns Israel? And it's not the seed of Ishmael. It's the child of promise is Isaac, which is the Jews. Now, you could argue it's a Christian. Christians should own Jerusalem. You could argue that and win with me, saying that the children of faith are Christians. They're the ones that are like the stars, billions of people, billions of Christians. Now, you would win with me on that. But Israel does not have, or Jews do not have a land of their own. So I'm all good with Israel being all of the Jews. I'm good with that.
In Washington Thursday, Defense Secretary Leon Panetta wasn't talking.
Did Iran hack our drone, Mr. Secretary?
Most alarming will be if Iran's claim is true that it decoded the encrypted video from one of America's most secret aircraft.
Looking at the video, it certainly seems to be genuine. What I think is a giveaway is that you can see that the video in places is masked by what look like frames in a glass cover.
Since it captured the drone in 2011, Iran has embraced the propaganda value, even making a pink toy replica.
These things are being done for internal consumption. They're being done to show the Iranian people that the Iranian military is on the case, competent, technically advanced, and taking care of their needs.
An embarrassment for the U.S. Iran says it brought down the drone. U.S. officials only confirmed a drone lost control while on a mission over Iran.
Let me point out that Mark Zuckerberg's a Muslim. Bezos is a Muslim. A lot of people that own the internet, that control the internet, control the word on the internet. It's free speech. Oh, well, it's not free speech anymore. It's speech. They control speech. Are Muslim or atheists or anti-Christian at best, Satanists. So, why is it that American Christians are losing in politics so badly? I would offer the internet, that people that run the internet are satanic or Islamic, or, of course, in the religion of atheism.
At the time, President Obama asked Iran to return it.
We have asked for it back. We'll see how the Iranians respond.
Wait a minute. Did you not give billions of dollars to Iran? Wait a minute. Wait, let me get this right. They stole a highly advanced drone from us. And Obama, can we get it back, please? Can we get it back? We don't get it back. But Obama wants to keep giving them billions of dollars? Don't they owe us? With all the deaths of Americans that can be related to Iran and their terrorism against America, how much is pain and suffering for military men and women, government officials, people that got murdered by Iran? Pain and suffering for their families, the loss of income of those Americans for their families. How much money does that add up to, Obama?
And of course, Iran never returned the drone. The expert we talked to believes the simplest explanation may be the most likely, that Iran got a hold of the unencrypted, not coded video. And when they got it, they decided to show it to the world. The only question may be, why did they wait so long? Barbara Starr, CNN, the Pentagon.
Now, in another lens, me tried not to be anti-Obama. Now, Obama gave almost billions. He gave billions to Iran, undoubtedly. Now, the question is, should an American government conduct itself like Jesus says that the individual should conduct itself, to give that all that ask? Now, you have to really contemplate that if you're serious about God. Should America always give ransoms? Maybe someone has a lot more wisdom than me, but I would try to say, well, it's bad fruit. The difference between individualism, that we should be givers, we should love others as we love ourselves, and we love ourselves, we give ourselves money, so therefore we should give other people money when they ask for it. They really think they may really need it. So, but in governments, government to government, maybe that conduct is different than the individual. As far as the scripture I use is that be wise as a serpent, and that not that we get bad fruit from giving money to ransoms. When we give money for ransoms, especially Iran, they use it for terrorism. They use it for more leverage and to do evil things against us. So if we give them ransom money, they're encouraged to ever take more hostages, which is bad fruit. So maybe we should not partake in giving ransoms to Iran. And that's maybe differs from the individual or to governments. Now, as far as doing things in faith, it's important to God. And we can be wrong stepping out on faith. If I had a government and I said, well, it's bad fruit to pay ransoms, but God could correct me. I'm not saying I'm the ultimate authority and say you're supposed to give to all that ask. Even in government, he could say that. I don't know, but to do it in faith, that be wise as serpents, we get bad fruit from paying ransoms, and so we're not doing it, is the way I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I think he did mention, we should say that he mentioned talking to Mahmoud Abbas, who, of course, is the president of the Palestinian Authority, which has no real role in Gaza, controls the West Bank, and saying that he told Mahmoud Abbas that he supports essentially, dignity and the right to self-determination, I believe was the phrase he used, for Palestinians, that Hamas's evil attack do nothing to diminish belief in that rights. But to your point, Joy, and Jen, this is, I think, where the sort of rubber hits the road on both these conflicts is, if you're the best speechmaker in the world, you're taking sides in both of them, and there are American allies, and there's going to be money and weaponry flowing. And it's going to be a fair amount of money, not in the context of the American government's budget. In fact, it's basically a rounding error in the American budget and even in the defense budget, but in sort of sheer dollar terms. And so, Jen, on both the geopolitics of this, where there's an international audience, and the domestic politics, there's a certain amount of straddling that's just not really possible.
19 hijackers brought us to our economic knees on 9/11. 19 hijackers. With low-tech technology. They use our own technology against us. With all these billions and billions of dollars going to the world's largest state sponsor of terror, what does it matter if we give $20 billion to Israel to protect themselves from the $5 billion or $6 billion or $10 billion we give to Iran? I want you to really pay attention to Jen Psaki, what Jen Psaki says in this piece.
That is true. And I also think a certain amount of things you can't accomplish in a 15-minute speech. And when I worked for President Biden, what I know of how he kind of uses these moments and speeches and words is he recognizes that he is going to have to play a role, and likely is behind the scenes right now, in encouraging Prime Minister Netanyahu and the Israelis, who he has stood behind publicly.
In itself, it's nothing that big. People say that once in a while. Who stood by publicly. But if you know how the Democrats operate, that it's a Freudian slip. She is going around telling everybody, well, publicly he's supporting Israel, but behind the scenes, the assumption given in the Democrat notes, well, publicly we support Israel. Now, with all the evidence of Obama, of course it's Obama and Biden, with all the evidence of them helping out the largest state sponsor of terror with billion upon billion upon billion. The last time they give is $6 billion in one shot to the world's largest state sponsor of terror. When she says that, well, publicly he's with Israel, it has another context to it.
Very strongly to exercise some caution, to exercise some consideration of civilians and civilian casualties. He's going to need to use that leverage. That also may mean, and I think likely means, he could not get into details here about occupation or about the history of this conflict, because he is still in a role of playing chief diplomat and the president of the United States. And so as much as people want to hear those words and hear that recognition, I mean, some of these people who are leaving Gaza have been refugees multiple times over, right? Their grandparents have been refugees. I mean, the pain and suffering, the fact that these people haven't had a home is so visceral. But this wasn't the moment in the speech, because he has to think about the role he has to play as president.
Yeah, and there's been reporting on this about the sort of hug Netanyahu strategy, right? That full and 100% public support. So as a means of whatever private conversations, back channels, and leverage, there can be leverage there, because nothing public is going to work. Although he did reiterate, I think the thing that you said, Jen, and I agreed with, what I thought was the sort of most significant thing he said about that 9/11 comparison. And he made 2 points about it that I thought were interesting, and I think echoed things that I've been thinking. One, the sort of the rage and the anguish and the grief leading to mistakes. That's the term he used. And also the fear of a kind of hysteria, a kind of self-censorship, a kind of heavy weight that hangs over discourse. That means that people either, don't worry about what they say, or they worry about their neighbors. Joy, I thought that was an interesting, that he himself used that touchstone in the speech was striking to me.
No, absolutely. And again, this is probably the most difficult tightrope in the world that a president would have to walk, and and trying to weave these two conflicts together. But you're absolutely right. And he talked about people, needing to be able to be America, right? And there is a sense in which Biden is a nostalgia candidate, and that Trump is as well, right? Trump is a nostalgia for something dark in our past, but Biden is a nostalgia politician too. He still refers to America as the essential nation. He still views America as the greatest peacemaker, and he still seems to believe that he can rhetorically call on Americans to also be at peace rhetorically with each other, to be able to talk about this conflict in a way that recognizes that, as he says, we're all Americans. Whatever our background, we are all the United States of America. It's the line he does in every one of his speeches. And it's so difficult because we're in this moment where even Joe Biden, who is the sort of most moderate, down-the-middle Democrat you could have possibly nominated for president, he has become divisive. But I think his continual call to return to this idea of a United States of America and to return to a civic dialogue, it is so Biden.
Joy Reid and Jen Psaki, it was wonderful to have you both before the speech and after. I really, really appreciate it.
Is this video of Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I'm sure those in power cut it. They dismissed, or they're inside the Capitol, and a Congresswoman, Marjorie Taylor Greene, is being harassed by one of the protesters or rioters, or whatever you want to call it, if you want to apply equal justice to January 6th protesters or rioters, whatever you want to label them as. But you remember that the January 6th were locked out of the Capitol. These people was not locked out. So they got special treatment. And you have to wonder, is it Valerie Jarrett? Is it Huma? Is it Obama? who is it that is having this rise of anti-Semitism and this rise of Iranian terrorism in America? Who's to blame?
They support murdering innocent women and children in Israel.
Yeah, they don't care about the people that were murdered in Israel. They are strictly for pro-Palestine, which is pro-Hamas.
Why did the Capitol Police even let them in the building?
Well, because I don't know. They arrested everybody on January 6th, but no.
This seems like more like an insurrection.
I gotta go back to my office for safety. Yeah. Ben.
They support murdering innocent women and children in Israel.
Yeah, they don't care about the people that were murdered in Israel. They are strictly for pro-Palestine, which is pro-Hamas.
Why did the Capitol Police even let them in the building?
Well, because I don't know. They arrested everybody on January 6th, but no.
This seems like more like an insurrection.
I gotta go back to my office for safety. Yeah. Ben.
One or 2 days ago, I released a video, and it was articulating different times and political history of news of course, all the way back from when Obama was in power. His treatment to Iran and Israel, some of that, and it's a case that has all the attributes of it, showing that the rise of Iran, the help of Obama and Biden administrations, and of course having some of the workers, Valerie Jarrett, Iranian ties, Huma, Iranian ties, and this is a response video of my video 1 or 2 days ago. It's saying that, of course, Mr. President Joe Biden has ties. He has workers that are directly working to Iran, which they're releasing right now in this video. I'm going to do a re-release of my original video and put this at the end.
And we begin this Sunday morning with breaking news from Israel as the war against Hamas terrorists enters a 16th day. This morning, 1,400 Israelis are dead. More than 4,600 Palestinians are dead, including 32 Americans killed. Now, fears are mounting that the war could spread to other parts of the Middle East as Iran continues its terror campaign through proxies. Joining me right now is Texas Senator Ted Cruz, who sits on both the Senate Foreign Relations and Senate Judiciary Committees. Senator, good to have you this morning. Thanks very much for being here.
Maria, good morning. Good to be with you.
Let me get your take from a policy perspective, what you can do, what you and your colleagues can do in the face of this bloodshed.
Well, this attack is the worst attack on Israel in 50 years. This is what happened on October 7th. In the early mornings of October 7th is the single largest mass murder of Jews in a day since the Holocaust. And Israel right now is quite rightly responding, and they are responding. Prime Minister Netanyahu has made clear that his objective is to utterly eradicate Hamas. These terrorists, they targeted civilians. They went from home to home to home, going after civilians, deliberately murdering the elderly, murdering women, murdering children. They would murder entire families simply because they were Jewish. They violently raped women and young girls, publicly parading them in the street. They murdered and decapitated and burned alive toddlers and infants. This is horrific, and it is evil what Hamas terrorists have done. Now, going forward, there are several steps for U.S. policy. Number one, we need to cut off the funding that has enabled this attack to happen. And what is so infuriating is that over the last 2.5 years, Joe Biden and the Biden administration have flowed nearly $100 billion to Iran. Understand, Hamas is a proxy for Iran. Without Iran, there would be no Hamas. And the Wall Street Journal has reported that this attack was planned by Iran, was funded by Iran, was directed by Iran, and yet the Biden administration continues to allow billions and billions of dollars to flow to the Ayatollah to be used to murder Israelis and to murder Americans.
That is exactly right, Senator. And right now, we have Iranian sympathizers working within the Biden administration. And that is why I started asking you, what can you do about it? Because these atrocities are continuing. And we have Robert Malley, apparently Biden's chief negotiator in the Iran nuclear talks. We have others that are still working in the administration that have been leading this effort to get the United States back into an Iran deal, leading this effort to, in fact, lower the sanctions, enabling Iran to generate billions in revenue. And what are they doing with the money? They are empowering these terrorists.
Well, and what you just mentioned with Rob Malley remains one of the greatest national security scandals in our nation's history. So Rob Malley was Joe Biden's chief negotiator for Iran. He's an incredible Iran sympathizer. He is an advocate, a passionate advocate for the disastrous Obama-Iran nuclear deal. But he also has extraordinarily bad judgment. He's been fired. He's had his security clearances stripped, which I want you to pause and think, just how bad does his conduct have to be to have his security clearances pulled by this ideological and radical White House? But we now know also that, among other things, 3 of Rob Malley's top advisors, his inner circle, that he relied on, were Iranian operatives. They were recruited by the government of Iran. They were directed by the Iranian foreign minister. They reported to the Iranian foreign minister. We have their emails now in which they discuss. One of them discusses with the foreign minister that his loyalties are with the government of Iran, and he is there to do whatever they direct, including making the message from within the federal government that there's nothing wrong with Iran having a nuclear stockpile. You literally had 3 Iranian spies working in senior positions directly around the U.S. government. One of them, as far as we know, remains a chief of staff in the Department of Defense to this day with access to classified documents. And yet the corporate media cannot be brought to mention that 3 Iranian spies were brought into senior levels of government with access to classified materials while working directly for Iran, the same Iran that just murdered 31 Americans and 1,400 Israelis, the same Iran directed by an Ayatollah who regularly leads mobs chanting death to America and death to Israel.
And we knew this, Senator. I mean, we knew that while they were negotiating on the Iran deal. The Ayatollah was saying death to America at that time. And this administration continued to pursue. Why?
You know, they have an ideological obsession. Number one, their approach to every enemy of America is appeasement. And that's true whether it's Russia, that's true whether it's China, that's true whether it's North Korea, that's true whether it's Venezuela, that's true whether it's Iran. Their response, I got to tell you, they have taught our enemies that the worse they are, the more money Joe Biden will give you. You know, I mentioned the $100 billion, and it's worth focusing on that for a moment. A lot of folks now are talking about the $6 billion. The $6 billion got a lot of coverage, that the Biden administration spent $6 billion that was essentially ransom money to free 5 American hostages. Now, at the time that happened, I said publicly, many others said publicly, this is terrible policy. You're effectively putting a bounty on the heads of Americans. You're telling bad guys, we'll pay you $1.2 billion a person for every American hostage that you have. And I predicted at the time, our enemies will take more American hostages, and Iran, because of this bounty, will take more American hostages. They now have roughly 200 Israeli hostages and about a dozen American hostages. So I'm sorry to say that prediction came through within weeks. But that's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the money that went to Iran. Before the $6 billion, the Biden administration sent $10 billion that went from Iraq to Iran. And the biggest pot of money deals with the refusal of the Biden administration to enforce oil sanctions. U.S. law puts tough oil sanctions on Iran. Biden came in, immediately stopped enforcing them. Today, Iran is selling 2 million barrels a day of oil. That has produced $80 billion, roughly, in revenue. That is funding these Hamas death squads. That is funding the rockets. That is funding terrorism. And the Biden administration, something that he could do today. He gave a speech last week. You know what was not in the speech? Saying we're going to enforce the oil sanctions and we're going to cripple the Iranian regime and take away their money. That's still Joe Biden and the Democrats have still proven unwilling to do.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it was just stunning to me to understand the fact that while this administration was actually negotiating to pay money for those hostages, the Iranians were actually planning on taking more hostages. And that is exactly what they did. Yeah. They unfroze the money. They went in, and Hamas went in and took more hostages. That is exactly what happened. I want to get your take on what happens with Jack Lew. Last week, your committee heard the hearing of the former Treasury Secretary under President Obama. He wants to be the next ambassador to Israel. Is it going to pass?
Well, I don't know. I think he's a terrible choice. I think you will see Republicans voting against him. The question is, does every Democrat vote party line? And they might. Jack Lew was the Treasury Secretary under Barack Obama. He was one of the critical point people for negotiating and implementing the Obama-Iran nuclear deal. Jack Lew played a critical point in flowing over $100 billion to Iran. That was catastrophically stupid then. It hurt American interest. It cost American lives. And now Joe Biden has taken the appeasement of Barack Obama towards Iran, has taken it to another level, and he wants to put as the point person for the administration in Israel someone who has funded in a very real way the death squads that are attacking Israel. I think that's a mistake. In ordinary times, I think there'd be a reasonable chance that some Democrats would say, look, this is a bad choice, and would vote no. Right now, the White House is saying, well, if you support Israel, you got to give us an ambassador there. I think it'd be great to have an ambassador there. It'd be even better to have an ambassador there who isn't responsible for funding the theocratic lunatics who are murdering your citizens, and to have an ambassador there who hasn't implemented policies for years that undermine the state of Israel. We need to support Israel, not undermine Israel and fund their enemies.
All right. Real quick on the package that the president is asking. He wants to tie the money together, the money going to Israel as well as money going to Ukraine. He's talking about humanitarian aid for the Palestinians as well. What about that package? Will it pass?
I think it's a big mistake. I don't know if it'll pass, but what the Biden White House is doing and what Chuck Schumer is doing is deeply cynical. Israel military aid is enormously popular. There's big bipartisan support for Israel military aid. He's taking the popularity of supporting Israel and he's holding it hostage. The hostages are not just being held by Hamas. The hostages are also being held by the Biden White House because he's taking Israel and saying you can have Israel military aid if you pass everything I want on Ukraine, if you pass Biden's funding. He calls it border security funding. What it really is funding to accelerate illegal immigration, to have more buses and more planes taking illegal immigrants to every city in America. And if you pass all of his priorities, it's a Christmas tree, then you can have Israel funding. What we ought to do is we ought to vote on a clean Israel funding bill that provides the military aid they need, the weapons, the ammunition, the additional munitions for Iron Dome and David Sling and Arrow 2 and 3, the missile defense systems. If we voted on that, it would pass overwhelmingly. And I think Joe Biden and the Democrats need to stop playing games with Israel funding. And you mentioned also, Maria, the funding for Gaza. This has been another indefensible step of this administration. Joe Biden has already sent hundreds of millions of dollars for Gaza. I led 17 senators saying, do not send that money because it will go to Hamas and they will use it for terrorism. 145 Democrat congressmen sent a letter saying, do send that money, despite the fact that it will go to terrorism. And we now know the Biden administration assessed the matter and they agreed with me. They concluded that there was, quote, a high likelihood this money would go to Hamas and be used for terrorism. And then you know what they did? They waived U.S. anti-terrorism law and they sent the money anyway. And what does Biden want to do now? Send more money to Gaza that will go to Hamas, that will be used to fund terrorism. It's the only thing they know how to do, funding terrorists. And it's a very, very bad idea.
Senator, we will be watching your work. It is an upcoming important week. Thank you so much for joining me.